Good afternoon, everyone. We're ready to get going. Welcome one, welcome all. Mr. Duhaney, let's go ahead and get going.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first presentation will be provided by Ruth Hill, Director of Housing and Neighborhood Preservation. She's going to brief City Council on our first two attainable housing grant programs. The first two will be for Grant Lake Senior Apartments and also the Silo Apartments.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson, distinguished council members, City Manager Duhaney, and City Attorney Stiles. I'm glad to be here with you today. So why are we here? Today we wanted to talk about the the Attainable Workforce Performance Grant. And if you remember, council approved the ordinance in April of 2024, and VBDA passed a resolution officially creating this grant process, and it aims to provide private development of safe, quality, affordable, multifamily rental housing units in the city. I'm going to provide you an overview of the affordability challenges here in Virginia Beach. We're going to talk about the grant requirements, and then I will go over a brief synopsis of each of the two projects. The first will be Grand Lakes, and the other will be the Silos. So if you remember, in 2024, there was a housing study report that was commissioned by Virginia Center for Research at Virginia Tech and Housing Forward Virginia, and they provided us data that indicated that households, 1 in 3 households in Virginia is housing cost burdened. That is about 30% of their income is, they're spending more than 30% of their income on housing costs. That actually indicates there are about, people in Virginia Beach, there's about 5,900 households here in Virginia Beach that fall into that category, and a household would need an income of about $70,000 or $34 an hour to afford the median rent here in the city of Virginia Beach, which is about $1,730. So there's a critical concern for the lack of affordable units to the very low-income households, the study indicated, and many of those are employed in our region's top 10 most common occupations. They often bear that burden of the high housing costs to remain here in the city of Virginia Beach. Excuse me, I jumped too fast. So the new program that was developed to help meet the need, Council approved the ordinance in April of this year, and then VBDA passed a resolution in May of 2024 to create this Attainable Workforce Housing Performance Grant. We launched the program in September of 2025, and it provides that incentive that we talked about for private development, for the development of the safe, affordable housing that we need in the city. The idea is that it would be self-sustaining and performance-based, so the annual grants are provided to the developer based on the incremental real estate taxes generated by their approved development. I wanted to share with you that the amount to be paid each year of the grant term is determined annually based on the annual assessed value of the project and the real estate rate set by the City Council. So the eligibility requirements. It must be new construction. It must be developed by a for-profit entity. Only new multifamily affordable rental housing units that have not started construction are eligible. And there must be a demonstrated gap in the pro forma or the project financing. It can be affordable, fully affordable, and it can be mixed use or mixed income. Commercial and residential are both allowable under the eligibility. Projects that involve any kind of demolition of existing rental units would only be eligible if they then build a minimum of 20% affordable units in this new project. Projects could have their zoning approval, or they would have to be in the process of attaining approval through the city's planning process before they can submit an application. So the first grant request is Grand Lake Senior Apartments. It is 172 units of senior housing for those that are age 62 or older, and it is 100% residential. It is developed by Grand Lakes Limited Partnership, which is the principal owner is Franklin Group Companies. It is new construction on vacant land, and there are no other improvements on this property. They will also be using low-income housing tax credits, LIHTC, and council did approve a conditional zoning rezoning on December 10th of 2024. They expect to start December 2025, and they have a funding gap of $2,150,000. So this is the site location. It is in Dr. Ross Hammond's District 4, and it is behind the AAA building off Virginia Beach Boulevard. They're looking to subdivide a portion of that back, the back of that lot. So Grand Lakes affordability, we wanted to share with you the affordability quotient here. 100% of these units, or all 172, will be affordable for houses, and it will average 60% of the area median income. About 52%, or 89 of the units, will serve households at or below 50% AMI. And the developers also indicated that they will provide housing to households with maximum gross incomes listed below, which are based on the household side. You can see this chart here. There'll be 19 units at income of 30% AMI, 19 at 40, 51 at 50%, 14 at 60, and then 69 at or below 80% of the area median income. And you can see the incomes there from one person up to 4 people. So the fiscal impact of Grand Lakes in terms of what it would generate from the city revenue tax increment is based on the estimate of $188,503 or $1,096 a unit. And the way this is assessed comes from the assessed value of the project at completion, which is $21,278,350,000. You take the estimated first year's tax revenue at 97 cents, which comes to $206,400. And then the current assessed value of the property is currently $1,845,000. You take that $17,897, which is the 97 tax revenue that would be generated. You subtract the tax revenue from the incremental tax, and that's how you get the $188,503. The applicant will pay an administrative fee to VBDA of 1% of the annual grant amount. And the grant to be paid each year will be determined annually on the assessed value of the project and the real estate tax rate set by City Council. So it is annually assessed. So the recommendation is that this grant space real estate tax amount would be $17,897, that the annual grant payment of 100% of the incremental tax real estate taxes would be allowed. The grant would have a grant term of 30 years with the second 15 years on condition of a minimum of $10,000 each affordable unit for the first 15 years, which would come up to $1,720,000. And then the average income of the persons living in these units would be about 60% AMI for the grant term of 30 years. So that's the first project. The second grant request is the Silos apartments. It is 200 units, again, 100% residential. It's also developed by the Franklin Group. It is new construction on vacant land. Again, no other improvements currently on the property, excuse me. It also will use low-income house tax credits. Council approved conditional rezoning July 8th of this year. The expected construction would start in June of 2026, and their funding gap is $2,775,000. The Silos is off Princess Anne Road. It's west of the courthouse, and it is in Barbara Henley's district number 2. So the affordability for the silos, it would be all 100 units would be affordable for households whose incomes are on average 60% of the area median income. The developer has always also indicated that the project will provide housing for households with incomes at 50 to 80% AMI, but the average will be about 60%. You can see here on this chart that is listed below, they have not indicated the number of units. They're further along on the Grand Lakes project than they are on this one, but they're looking at 50, 60, 70, and 80% AMI for this project. You can see the income limits there. So the fiscal impact of the silos, the estimated amount of the grant would be $216,179 or $1,081 a unit. It is again based on the recent assessed values of multifamily affordable housing. The assessed value of the project at completion would be $27,216,495. The estimated first-year tax revenue would be 97 cents of that, which is $264,400. And the current assessed value of the property is $4,930,000. You take that minus the incremental tax there, the tax revenue there, and you get the grant amount, which is the $216,179. Very exactly how the calculations were done for the first project. Again, the applicant will pay the fee to VBDA, and again, each year the grant will be determined annually based on the annual assessed value of the project, and the real estate tax is set by City Council. So the recommendation of the terms here is that the real estate tax amount would be $47,821, which is 100% of the incremental real estate taxes. The grant term would be 30 years with the second year 15-year conditional on a capital improvement of $10,000 for each affordable unit, or $2 million for the first 15 years. The average income of 60% for the grant year for the 30 terms is expected for those households. So next steps is if we're asking City Council to consider a resolution to approve the grant applications potentially at the October 21st council meeting. So I'll take comments or questions, and I have Sharon Schoaf, who is my subject matter expert, if there's anything that I cannot answer. Thank you.
Stacy and Ward.
Thank you very much. Very clear explanation. Just want to ask some questions to clarify because I'm anticipating some public outcry simply because of who the developer is and the controversy that was involved in one of these projects in particular. But I just want to clarify for the sake of this grant application request. Was the Grand Lake project approved before the grant process was approved?
The zoning land use portion of the project was approved. That was approved before they submitted their application for the Attainable Housing Grant Program.
And then same thing with the silo. Was the silo project approved before the grant process was approved?
Councilmember Cummings, yes, sir. The Silos project was approved from a land use rezoning aspect before the Attainable Housing Grant was applied for.
Do both of these projects 100% meet the terms of the grant process that was passed by the city?
Yes, sir, they absolutely do.
Did Mr. Franklin's position on the VBDA have any input on either the grant process or upon this application?
Councilmember Cummings, it's my understanding that Mr. Franklin did not participate in any conversations at the VBDA or participated in that process, and that he since, prior to this coming forward to the VBDA for adoption or approval, which was today, resigned from the board. So he resigned prior to this coming to the board for consideration.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Ms. Hill, for the presentation. This is a great program. I just have a couple questions as well, and then an observation. The observation first. So my math here, just for my benefit as well as the public and colleagues, this is about an ask for 10% of the overall. The cap of, like on this one right here, number 11, the gap of $2,775,000,000 is about 10% of the overall project cost. So that's not 50%, 30, 20, 10%, which is helpful. It's a gap, but it's not a majority. You've got loans and other things. Right.
And to clarify, the gap was created because the Silos project was not anticipated to be 100% affordable housing. The developer opted to make it 100% affordable housing, and since he's going to collect lower rents, the gap was created in that way.
That's okay. So that leads kind of to this, well, to page 9, if you could go back. This is applicable to both. So that first one, estimated assessed value of project at completion, $21,278,000. That's whose estimate? Is that our estimate? Is that the developer's? That's the City of Virginia Beach's estimate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's an independent valuation now. And so the third, oversight of the rental, how is that conducted, and is it over time? Is it just a one-time? Is it over the 15 years? How's the oversight of the income level and the rents charged?
Do we have, Sharon?
That'll likely probably happen annually.
I was going to say annually, I think they have to provide a report of some sort. This is the first two. I don't know that those details have been worked out, but we'll have a report out annually to see what the rents are and who's living there to ensure that it is maintaining affordability, number one, and they're staying in line with the grant process.
In order for them to get the disbursement, they have to verify that they've met the terms of the contract annually, and it's also will be done probably with the low-income housing tax credits. So the state will probably also do that as well.
Okay. And then lastly, the use of the VBDA, is that part of the state law? The reason why we're doing that, it's not because of us, it's because of the state law. That's correct, Ms.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So Councilmember Remick, the General Assembly only authorized the Development Authority to do that with the concurrence of the City Council.
Right. Thank you.
Hey, Josh.
Thanks, David. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. Grand Lakes, when it started out, it was 100% affordable, correct? It was approved as a 100% affordable development.
I think you're correct on Grand Lake, sir.
Okay. And then when the silos started out, it was, help me remember, it was 30% affordable, and then it got bumped to somewhere in the 40% range.
It wasn't 100%. I don't remember the actual percentage of it that was affordable, but I don't think it was 100%. It wasn't 80% either.
I'm trying to remember. I remember it was around 30, and then when it came back for that second time, when they added some additional, they changed the kind of outlay of the project. That bumped it, I think, an additional affordable percentage. So, okay, I just want to be clear on that. And then I remember when we last dealt with a workforce housing policy application, there were folks that had mentioned that that whoever the developer was hadn't even applied for the program, or there wasn't, I guess, a signed application on the dotted line or some sort of agreement. I just wouldn't want to have that happen again, I guess, or be, have somebody be accused of not, following the process or, putting pen to paper on an agreement beforehand.
So Councilmember Schulman, they did apply for the program. It was briefed to the VBDA as well. The VBDA, I think, adopted it.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes,
VBDA
sir.
voted for it as well. So the process is that they would come before the City Council. If there's any zoning things that they need to get clarified, they'll get that approved by council. Then they could apply for the program. If they meet the terms of the program, staff would present it to the VBDA. VBDA will adopt it, and then it'll come to City Council after that adoption for council to consider it.
Okay, if you don't mind, I would like maybe just somebody from staff to give me those percentages on what the original silo application was, and then the follow up with what those percentage. And the only reason I say as much is because without going to the public again, we can basically backdoor approval of a higher percentage affordable that a community was looking at, and I don't know that's necessarily the bargain that was struck. When everybody was before the council. So regardless, it's a good policy, good project. But
Okay, anybody else at this point? Okay, Cash and then Worthing.
Yeah, I thank you for the presentation. I think we have to keep in mind of the ever-changing costs of labor and just the cost of doing business. And so I understand we're looking at this and saying, well, it wasn't the way it was when we first laid it out, but obviously we've got a new leadership since all of this have come about, and the leadership that we have now, I think we need to plan that when it comes to labor costs, things are going to be different. When it comes to how council was before I got onto council, it's going to be different. So I'm all for affordable housing, and this project is one that I stand fully behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Worth.
Just one more clarification or statement, really. This program that we have is almost like a but-for. Right now, this is a vacant piece of land. So the developer is going to invest $21 million in this case and a little less than the other one. So, but for that investment, we are leveraging future tax dollars now. So it's no money out of our pocket today. It's a future income stream that we're leveraging for upfront. So this is a free way really for us to help these projects and future ones get started. Thanks.
Hey, Rosemary.
Just wanted to also comment, I appreciate everybody's questions and all around the table, that these multifamily housings, like the Silo, which has already been before us twice, they're going to be built whether we approve this grant or not. So this has nothing to do with whether the projects are going to be built or not. So they can, without the grant, they could just go ahead and do market rate housing, or what they promised in their applications. But it's going to happen anyway. And if you remember when we did the study, one of the recommendations from Virginia Tech was that we put $5 million to help with affordable housing. This is a way that we can help with the attainable housing without putting taxpayers' dollars into creating that. And so I think this is this grant program is going to really help us with a very important issue that's not just for us, but across the country, with the affordable attainable housing.
Okay, Hutch.
Just real quick, I just want to state that we kind of are slipping back and forth here with our way we're calling it. This is attainable workforce housing, right? So that's where I think we should stick with, is what we're calling it. It's because I can tell you in any of my town halls and civic league meetings, you start saying affordable and we get into another game. And if you're looking at and I shouldn't have said game, we get into another area of worry. But looking at the amounts and everything else that's made here for your salaries and everything else and the numbers, that's not low. You know what I mean? Those numbers, it takes a pretty good salary to get in here, and a lot of our employees are in that range. Mm-hmm. So it is certainly workforce housing, and it's kind of like I said about the Silo here is that. You have 3 fire stations, you have the Lansdowne Yard, you have the courthouse, you have the deputies, the sheriffs, you have plenty of folks that are going to fill that that work within a couple of 3 miles, which will help with the ATAC, the different transportation. So I think there's a lot of positives here with both. Obviously with Ms. Ross Hammonds, is that having that over there is a wonderful piece of property to develop this on. So I just think overall it's fantastic. And one last thing, and not that the Franklin Group needs anybody to defend them, but like the Elevate 17 on Military Highway, borders here in my district, they made available 9, I believe, apartments for some less than able folks, and they made office space available for them in their office structure there in the middle. So I think that was pretty stand-upish of them. So. Just saying that I think there's a lot of good that can come from this. As we've stated very clearly, this is the area that we've got to have some housing. So I just think it's important. Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? Amelia.
Yes, thank you, Ruth, for this, because as you know, I'm very much an advocate for attainable, I'm going to call it attainable workforce housing in that form. I had Two questions. We have both here. Were there any other developers asking or putting in for this? Just to clarify for the public.
Currently, these are the only two applications we have received to date.
Okay.
But Dr. Osman, it's open and available for any developer that's interested in building attainable workforce housing in the city. So it's not just for a particular developer, it's for
Right.
those interested in developing attainable workforce housing in Virginia Beach.
Yeah, that's important because we don't want people to think it's only one group.
No.
But these people are very empathetic towards seeing affordable housing. And on the second, for the silos, you have the income for one person starting at 37, whereas the one for Grand Lick, it starts at 20-something. Was there a reason?
The difference is the AMI. If you'll see, one starts at 30% AMI, the other one starts at 50. That's the difference.
Okay, so that means.
It's a lower income based on the income that they get, so, or a higher income. So that's why it's based on the percentage of the income.
For that specific area, or?
No, it's what the developer chose to do. He chose to do it for lower incomes in the Grand Lakes project, but he chose to do it for a higher income level in the Silos project.
That's what I thought I saw.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Hey, Barbara?
Looking at these salaries, I'm concerned that the jobs that we're going after are in this range. So economically, we seem to be going after businesses that pay these amounts. How are we ever going to increase our incomes if we are not economically going after the businesses that pay the jobs that are much higher than these?
I'll tell you what, you mind if I, tackle that? I think once again, it's not going to business. A lot of folks that can come to business, that's why we call it attainable housing. Because this way, if somebody comes here and they're mid-management and they're making a couple $100,000 a year, that's what it takes basically to afford a house that's built now for $400,000 to $500,000. As mentioned before, as I said often, that Wells Fargo Mortgage came up with a fee that every house that's built now, there's a $93,000 regulatory cost to go in. The cost of housing is amazing. So we have to find, those price points for everybody. And I think at this price point, what we're talking about, Barbara, with respect, are the people that are already here, that are coming here to become firemen, teachers, and things of that nature. That is the critical need of the immediate problem that we have right now. We are attracting, the bigger businesses and companies. But once again, we have to get housing inventory at all different levels to accommodate the people that live here. And then once again, we're also still very much a tourist and hospitality business where a lot of folks really don't make a thing. But Hutch can probably tell you what a starting fireman makes, what a starting school teacher thinks, and these are all very important elements to to what we need. So we need price points at the bottom and all the way to the top.
Well, certainly, may I?
Yes.
Second.
But,
I just want to also mention the military.
yeah.
If we want to be able to keep Oceana going and get the next level of the F-35s, they also need to see that their personnel has a good place to live. And so the military is very, very supportive of us having this workforce housing because one of their biggest issues besides childcare is having a place for their service people to live.
Okay, can I get to Barbara first and then Patrick?
And I agree, and I certainly understand all of that, but I am looking at these salaries And I'm seeing these salaries as being salaries that we're being told is what's being paid by some of the new businesses that are here. And I just wonder if we have any particular program within our economic development that is going after the higher paid jobs. Otherwise, I think we're really looking at some really major problems, because yes, we do have the military that needs an affordable housing, as well as our employees and so forth, but we really need those high income jobs too. And I just would like to see what we're doing with our economic development that is going after those jobs, so we can afford to pay these, because as you said, it's got to be a balance.
Oh, wait.
Well, we had a presentation today at Economic Development that, Michael, was 114,000 was the median salary range, that they were going to have like another 65 jobs coming in. 75 jobs coming in. So that is happening.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, Michael, please. Oh, wait a minute, Patrick, and then Michael, if you don't mind.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to mention what the Vice Mayor mentioned. So staff is working with the VBDA to increase our income thresholds for the kind of jobs that are eligible for incentives with the city. I'd also like to note that a lot of times when the information is reported about the salaries that were recruited, they're done on an average basis. So it takes into account what the vice president, what a foreman, what a supervisor, but also what the receptionist might make. Right, you might end up with a receptionist making $35,000. You might end up with a foreman or a supervisor or VP making $150,000, $200,000. But that may bring it down to a $60,000 or $75,000 range, because it includes all the jobs that will be recruited as part of the recruitment effort to bring a job to Virginia Beach. And Councilmember Schumer, you asked about silos. It looks like about 77 of the 200 were originally going to be affordable, so about 38-40%.
Michael.
Thank you. And I think Mrs. Henley brought up a good point that I think, and I appreciate what you said, sharing. I'm well aware that economic development is trying to attract an all of the above approach to attracting good jobs to Virginia Beach across the spectrum. Entry-level jobs, more jobs with that require additional education and training, so that someone can enter the workforce and continue their career and raise their family in Virginia Beach. I think all of those jobs are very important, and I'm sure we all agree. But when I look at this chart on page 8, I'm not looking at salaries. This is a senior apartment. And I know seniors, so 19 units dedicated for one person who makes $22,000 or below. I know seniors who fall into that category. And they're worried about having a roof over their head. And so I'm pleased to see movement, which we have, since I've been here, I've seen a variety of council cycles, and every single time, I don't think there's anyone who didn't say they didn't support housing affordability in the city. And so I'm pleased to see 200 units, 172 units come online that gives, and it's not just seniors, it's people worried about their parents. You know, we all know people, Mr. Green, you were talking about a senior center that you visit. We all know people that are scared about what their future entails and what their housing stability will look like. And to me, I think we should feel very good and excited, because we're not talking about salaries on this chart. We're talking about income the seniors receive, seniors who may not have that nest egg that they can rely on. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else at this point? Let me just say this. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention, looking at past experience, and what this Franklin group, the caliber that they put out, makes a difference. There's another unit in my area, further down near Priority, along there where they have one. And all the seniors, all those people are very pleased. Because right away, when people think of workforce housing, they're thinking of something that's more blighted, and they put that extra effort to put a good product out. Thank you.
Was that the Arbor? You were talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 190 units, and it's a senior dedicated, with programs and rec rooms and everything. Okay, I think this is great, but, let's be honest, every city council, governing board of every city in this country are having these same conversations. Housing is not a Virginia Beach crisis. It is a national crisis. And for the most part, international, from what I understand in Canada, they're having worse problems. But that being said, once again, we got to confront it. And let me just say, and I remember 20 years ago when I first came on city council, and I met, my colleague and friend, Rosemary Wilson. We got involved with a group called Empower Hampton Roads, if you recall. And one of the first times we really spoke, we went to Portsmouth. And Tim McCarthy and Teresa Stanley, and we went up to Northern Virginia, where they were taking McMansions that weren't selling and dividing them into 4 condos. And, so I've been, an advocate for this, for a couple decades now. I'm not coming to the dance late on this. And to me, it's always been, a passion. And, the other confrontation we have with reality is that, I'm part of the senior tsunami that is really hitting all the baby boomers of the 50s are, getting into their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And life expansion has been up there. There is a critical need. And Rosemary, if you remember back in the day, when I was the Centerville rep, they were looking for a district to put in the first ever affordable house. And if I'm not mistaken, it came to the Centerville district. And I believe a police officer, because once again, everybody back then was so skeptical, a hutch hit on it because, people had the perceptions of affordable housing, what it meant, neighborhood degradation and everything, and all the myths that, go on with this. And, let me just say that there are 2 developers that are local, but are statewide and East Coast known, and that's the Franklin Group and Steve Lawson. And in the old Centerville district, if you go to Providence Road, you see the Chartwood Apartments there. That's all affordable. These are folks that step to the table. Steve Lawson, years ago, maybe 10 years ago, built that on Mediterranean and 19th, some of the most valuable property in the city. And they put in an attainable unit there, not only for people with income problems, but disabilities and things of that nature. But once again, every elected body will always get pushback when we really try to confront the attainable housing thing. And it was written up in the State of the Region a couple of years ago. Everybody's confronting that. So the thing is, I think we got the information here. And, once again, we welcome public scrutiny. But by the same token, we have to have the courage and conviction, because a couple of years ago we said, and I know I say this often enough, that we said that housing is our 4th highest priority after stormwater, public safety, and schools. And now we just got to step to the plate. And, but once again, ultimately, once these are built, they become part of the community. When I was the Centerville rep, I had 2 projects that we were able to get in, the Infinity and the Cascades. And right at a busy intersection at Centerville and Lynn Haven, and 450 units were built. And guess what? They're all they're considered good neighbors, because we went in and talked to the neighbors first, and we were able to get Lynn Haven Parkway open and things. Now they're part of the community. So controversial now, but once again, they're become neighbors and part of the community, and not to mention improve our tax base. So I know I went on a little bit, but I'm kind of passionate. I've been passionate about this for a long time. Okay, thank you all very much. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Next, our favorite time of year.
All right, so, Mr.
That in the budget season, oh, yeah.
Council, the next presentation will be on the draft 2026 legislative agenda. Legislative Affairs Director Brent McKenzie is going to give City Council an overview of your current draft legislative agenda, and then seek City Council guidance for any amendments or changes they would like to make ahead of your vote on this item next week on October 21st.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. City Manager, and Mr. City Attorney. I'm here today to continue the process that has been laid out for adopting the draft legislative agenda. At the conclusion of this very brief presentation, we will be looking for some final guidance on items you would like added, removed, or changed. Just a reminder of our timeline. Last week, we held a public hearing on the Blue Line Charter Amendment and on the legislative agenda as a whole. Here today, I'm here to seek your final guidance. And then the draft legislative agenda will be on your City Council meeting agenda for adoption next week. The Blue Line Charter Amendment will be voted on separately. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So the Blue Line Charter Amendment will be voted on separately, and as a reminder, it will require 9 votes for adoption. The rest of the legislative package can be either voted on as a package as a whole, or if there are items anybody would like to pull out of that, those could be voted on separately, and those will require 8 votes for adoption. As part of today's discussion, we're looking for some guidance on the following items. The first one is on e-bikes. So for e-bikes, we're recommending to retain the language that was approved by or recommended by ATAC. This will provide some flexibility for our lobbying efforts. The second area is for the Virginia Aquarium Foundation. You'll recall that you received a letter in the last week from the foundation requesting a swap in some of the language. You'll remember we have the 2 budget amendment requests in there, one for $250,000 dealing with stranding and one dealing with the renovation and expansion of the aquarium. Here, the aquarium has asked us to consider replacing both of those items with their legislative language where they're seeking a study from the General Assembly money committees on how to move forward with both of those items. So that we'll be seeking your guidance on how you'd like to proceed with that.
Rosemary.
So, and I appreciate the foundation and what their comments are. And I have talked to several of our legislators, and they don't think we should bundle these 2 together. So I'm perfectly fine with the new language that the foundation has recommended on the $10 million CIP grant money, but the stranding, I think we should keep it separate. And like I say, I've talked to several legislators, and they're advising that as well, is to keep them separate. Keep the stranding ask as is. They did have, one of them wanted to know what's the total amount that's spent on stranding, so if we can get that information for them as well. But I'd like to recommend that we keep them separate, please.
Anybody else on this?
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. And then the third item, we have some language that we need to clean up on the Blue Line Charter Amendment. The concept will remain the same. We just need to firm up the language to make sure there's no unintended consequences on programs like the ARP or something like that. So we will get that language to you once we've got it completed, and we'll get that to you this week ahead of the adoption next week.
Okay, Barbara?
I would like some input in that because I agree that there is some language that we just need to change because it's got this word "except" in there. So we're actually bringing in a way to achieve this instead of tightening it up. So if we can work on that language, I would like to work with you.
Yes, Councilwoman, I'm glad to do that, and I'm sure the city attorney's got some thoughts as well.
Mark?
we'll be happy to speak with you, Ms. Henley, and see what your suggestions are. The primary change that I've been advised would be useful would be changing the language so that it would not apply to all planning items, but rather only to rezonings. And by limiting it only to rezonings, you would take out the concern that it might have some unintended impact on, for example, the ARP program, because of course the alternate residential density is a CUP rather than a rezoning, so that would take that concern out of the issue. But if there are other suggestions that you have, I would be happy to hear from you.
You know, when you put that word "except" in there, in the past, we've had a hard stop, that there would be no water and sewer south of the Indian River Road, but this allows it. So I think we just have to maintain what we now have.
Well, I would encourage us to consider the infrastructure limitation, the public improvements separately from the planning items, and this will only address a supermajority for planning items. It does not necessarily address, and is not intended to address, extending that, water and sewer past the established line.
Well, we need to talk about that because as I see it, this allows it to be done, whereas now we don't allow it. So I just want to make sure we maintain our present policy.
Okay.
I mean, maintaining what we have now is what I'd like to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but, certainly your input will be, appreciated. Okay, Stacy.
We addressed the e-bike situation in two different places. In the one place in transportation, we talk about improving the education of e-bike safety. And in the other place, we talk about actually trying to codify some limitations, restrictions on the use of e-bikes in certain places. And I don't want to see those two issues get confused or mingled, because I think we need to do more than educate people about e-bike usage, I think. And I'm not advocating, I'm not taking a position on any specifics right now. I'm saying that there needs to be more done than just educating the public. We need to have some restrictions and the ability to enforce these for public safety.
Yes, sir, Councilman, and I think that a lot of that will get borne out of some of the work that is potentially going to take place over the next couple of months in a short period of time. I'm not sure that will be completed in time for General Assembly action. If there's a specific request that you want to propose, there's certainly time to do that. We adopt this next week, but that's what we're here for today, is looking for y'all's final guidance on what you want in that draft package to vote on. But absent a specific policy or specific proposal, I think maybe our best bet right now is to maintain that language in the transportation section and then wait for y'all to complete the additional work that needs to be done here to find out what other proposals might be possible.
Okay, and Stacy, and during our council comments, I'm going to be addressing the task force that we're going to consider putting together, hopefully in a very expedited fashion, to address the concerns that you brought forward. But we'll be talking about that more and specifically during council comments.
Thank you.
And I think that, sorry, Mr. Manager, if you don't mind, leaving this language in here like this gives me that flexibility. Other people, other communities are likely seeing these issues. As I've talked to my colleagues who do this work, I haven't really encountered anybody else that's brought it to the forefront as you guys have here. But this is likely not a unique concern just to Virginia Beach, right? So as other legislators encounter these issues and bring legislation forward, by maintaining this language in here, it gives me that flexibility to jump on board and to provide Virginia Beach's input into those legislative efforts as well. So it really does give us a lot of flexibility.
And Mr. Mayor, Brent's articulating that the task force, the work of the task force when council creates it, they may not be finished in time to get General Assembly members to actually write new legislation for adoption in July or June of next year. But the language that they wrote, that he has in there, gives him flexibility. If that something comes up for education or for restrictions, he can bring it back to council and ask council, do they want us to go a particular kind of way on it, right? So it does allow us to a little bit of flexibility to address some things that may come up, like if things are restrictive, but allow for local authority and how we implement that, then we have the ability to kind of support it in that way. But if things come up along the way, we always bring things that are germane to council's conversation to this table for council to give us direction on how best they want to propose, how best they want us to handle it. But we are asking for flexibility here, that if something is educational based or restrictive based, but preserves a local option, for us to be able to navigate that in the best interest of the city based on where we hear you all are on a particular issue.
Okay, good. Okay.
Last couple slides here. So there was strong preference amongst the council to maintain our original plan for the legislative reception. So we have set the legislative reception for November 19th, 5:30 to 7 here at City Hall. And then, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you to manage any questions or guidance. I have all the slides that we had in our original presentation. So if there are any questions on any of the items, we're prepared to answer any of those questions or provide any sort of guidance that you may wish.
Okay, any input, questions? Once again, this is going to be a kind of a work in progress, and we got some work ahead of us, and we'll get it done. Work.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Just a question in general, and maybe it's in here, but when we seek money from Richmond, the Senate, House, and the governor's budget, is there a certain area that we want to pursue, whether it be flood mitigation, education, roads, infrastructure, maybe in that order? Do we have any?
So as you read through the policy sections in the legislative agenda, you'll see a lot of that kind of intertwined in there, a lot of needs for road funding, a lot of discussions about flood mitigation. Those sort of things are built into that policy section. We don't have a specific ask on those fronts at this moment. We did have a couple of specific asks in the legislative agenda for funding. One was from our police department asking for funds dealing with some gun violence reduction, looking for technology and investment in our Parks After Dark program. There was a request from the Virginia Beach Fire Department for some funding for the urban search and rescue, as the federal government's starting to draw back on some of the investments in FEMA. There's a little bit of a concern that there may be a gap there that they're hoping that the state may be able to fill. And then we had the two aquarium requests, one of which it sounds like we're taking out and one which we're leaving. But those were the three. Oh, and then we had the fourth request dealing with the renovation for the judges' chambers at the courthouse. So those are the specific budget requests that we have at this moment.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I think we're ready to bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent work.
Thank you, sir.
I know it's tough. All right, moving on.
All right, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, City Council is going to receive a briefing on the close to final but still draft version of the comprehensive plan. The presentation will be given by Chris Sinclair, who is the founder of Renaissance Planning. Kathy Warren will introduce Chris and lay out the general path of what you all will hear next.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. We are pleased today to brief you on the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. I would like to start by introducing a few of our team members and thank them for all of their hard work to date. We have Hank Morrison over in the audience. That's our Comprehensive Planning Administrator. With our consulting team, we have Jerry West with Dills Architects, and then, of course, Chris Sinclair to my right with Renaissance Planning. I would also like to thank our Planning Commission. We do have some members of our commission in the audience for the long hours they have put into fine-tuning this plan, so thank you very much. As you know, we've been working on this plan for 2 years, and what you will hear today is the culmination of a great deal of public engagement, including our most recent public meetings where we presented the draft recently to the citizens. The public provided input early and often throughout the process, which really helped us to shape this plan. You will find this document to be much easier to navigate and user-friendly. Once the plan is adopted and online, links are embedded to take you directly to reference documents and plans, something we don't have now. As a reminder, this is a high-level plan that sets the tone for how we should grow over the next several years. It is the overarching guiding document that points you to the more detailed plans, like our SGA plans, which promote higher density and mixed-use development in certain areas, and the ITA plan that focuses on appropriate land use within the ITA. The focus of this plan is redevelopment because, as you know, we are coming to an end with greenfield development. This plan offers a roadmap on the appropriate way to execute redevelopment strategies, while also ensuring that the green line remains and the blue line is formalized. And throughout the plan, the importance of economic sustainability citywide is contemplated. We know that economic development is a top priority for City Council, so we do anticipate adding some additional language to that effect. We are accepting public comment through the end of October, and since the very beginning of this process, we've posted all of our documents and videos on our webpage to keep people informed. For our next steps, the Planning Commission was briefed on the plan last week, and it is anticipated that they will consider this item on their December agenda. We're hoping to bring this back to you for consideration at the beginning of the year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Now, technology. Oh, it works. I'm always amazed. Okay, so today what I'd like to cover is I'm going to begin with presenting the information we presented at the two public meetings we held back in September. I'll give you a summary of the feedback we received from those two meetings, give you an update on the draft as it's being updated into a final form. And then we, as Kathy mentioned, we did have a meeting with the Planning Commission about what was presented at the public meetings and their feedback from those meetings, and got some additional insight and comments from them. So let me start with a public meeting presentation. So we had two public meetings in September, and this is the information we presented at those public meetings. First of all, the agenda for that meeting is: what is the comprehensive plan? Why is it being updated? How was it updated? What stays the same? What's changed? How it will it be implemented moving forward? And what are the next steps in the update process? So what is the comprehensive plan? It focuses on land use and development, but those two things have an impact on other things, such as the environment, impacts water quality, it impacts natural lands, it impacts flooding. So we have to take into account those impacts when we're dealing with development patterns and land uses. It impacts how people travel. If you put land uses together and development patterns together properly, it can promote walking and biking and transit, and that's something we heard consistently from people during the process. It also impacts how much the networks are being impacted, like congestion on the roadway system and how many people are actually riding buses. It impacts housing, livability, and security, in terms of safety of neighborhoods, streets, types and cost of housing, which you all just talked about just a minute ago, access to parks, schools, and other civic amenities. So the comprehensive plan took all of those things in consideration. As Kathy mentioned, and as we mentioned at the public meeting, it is an overarching document. It guides the key implementation documents and tools the city has. Most importantly, the zoning ordinance, which regulates land development, the capital improvement programs, how the city invests its money into things such as parks and infrastructure, and as Kathy mentioned, the subsidiary plans that get into details in specific areas within the city. Why is it being updated? Well, the state of Commonwealth of Virginia requires a review of the comprehensive plan every 5 years. The current plan, it was adopted in 2016. It's a chance to go back and revisit and update based on what's working, what's not working. Context has changed over the years since 2016. Population forecasts have changed. Flooding has become a big issue. Attainable, affordable housing has become an issue. And there's been economic shifts that have all to be accounted for. How was it updated? We had a number of meetings, beginning with focus group meetings back in, it was July of 2023. Some of you were at those meetings. We had a total of 10 meetings across the city. What was very interesting about those meetings is we asked people, what are your aspirations and what are the challenges of the city? And the feedback we got from all of those meetings was very consistent, which laid down a very strong foundation for the plan. And you'll see that foundation as we go through the vision and the overarching goals. We had a first round of workshops with the public, and we asked people, given what we had heard in terms of aspirations and challenges, does this resonate with you? Do you agree? Is there something we're missing? So we had feedback there. That feedback allowed us to go into actually developing the guts of the plan. We had another round of workshops and a survey that was conducted in terms of the more detailed policies that went into the plan. And we used that to help us affirm the way we're going and to make some adjustments along the way. City departments have been reviewing the plan throughout, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from them. The Planning Commission, as Kathy mentioned, has been very active in helping us shape the plan as we've moved through the process. And then finally, we have the staff has met with boards and community groups over 90 times over the course of the project. What stays the same and what we heard from the public was protect the environment. That people recognize not only the beaches and the tributaries and the waterways within the city of Virginia Beach, but the large natural lands that are currently protected, such as Fallscape State Park, First Landing State Park, Back Bay Wildlife Refuge. Green Line and the Blue Line were on everybody's mind, and protecting those two lines was important. And then protecting the adopted plans that are already in place, such as the strategic growth area plans, the special economic growth area plans, transitionary guidelines, and other plans that are currently adopted. So what's new? Well, it all begins with a vision. So the plan begins with a vision statement that articulates what we heard at those focus group meetings and kept coming up again and again as we went through the process. The vision translated into a series of overarching goals, beginning with environmental sustainability, rural and agricultural land protection, infill redevelopment and multimodal access, economic sustainability and diversity, community identity and connections, neighborhood well-being and safety, and housing attainment and diversity. So these are the foundational elements of the plan. Those foundational elements were then used to put together objectives, which got more into the details of how these goals were to be achieved, which then translated into a series of policies, which were the specific steps that the city will take to achieve the objectives and ultimately the goals. So the plan is organized around those goals, objectives, and policies. So beginning with the environmental sustainability, if you imagine a city that has natural lands, beaches, waterways, and then imagine a city that can connect all of those things up with open spaces and ways not only animals but people can move throughout the city in a natural environment, which led to the other idea of an integrated linear park system within that open space system. Series of goals and objectives that support that overarching goal of environmental sustainability. Big idea. We had a number of big ideas that are also foundational to the plan, and one of the big ideas was creating an environmental and open space framework. Again, that would connect all of the natural lands and areas that the city currently has. It can work in conjunction with the Sea Level Wise program, which is going to have to mitigate and deal with low-lying areas throughout the city. So how can you marry that initiative with creating this framework, an open space framework? There are grant opportunities out there, such as the Virginia Wildlife Corridor Program, that could help fund this program. But the idea is to create this integrated system throughout the city. Then embedded within that system and sort of working with the active transportation plan the city has already put together, creating a linear park system where people can actually get into that system easily from wherever they live and get to most of the differing areas of the city. Rural and agricultural land protection, one of the things I think was extremely important when we were talking to the public was not only protecting rural lands, but making sure that agriculture was a viable business south of the blue line. That was something that requires more than just protecting land. It requires all of the things that the city is currently doing. Again, a series of goals and objectives in support of that overarching goal. The green and the blue lines are staying in the plan. The green line was adopted in 1979, as you are well aware. The blue line is not in the currently adopted plan, but it is in this update of the plan. And heard just a few comments earlier about the blue line and the importance of the blue line. Now, the reason why the blue line and the green line are important, they created the context areas that we organized the plan around. South of the blue line is the rural context area. In between the green line and the blue line is the green line context area. Then north of the green line are two context areas. One is the inland area. The second is the coastal area. The big difference there is the coastal area, because of its location along the Atlantic and Chesapeake, and because of the activities within that area, it's a different kind of environment. So we wanted to recognize that in the plan. So for each one of these context areas, there's a chapter devoted to it, a series of policies, goals and policies for each context area. So you can reflect the unique characteristics in each one of the context areas. Another overarching objective is infill redevelopment and multimodal access. If the city's protecting land south of the green and the blue lines, then there's not much available vacant land north of the green line. So the question then becomes, how does the city grow in terms of economic development, in terms of population growth, housing growth north of the green line? So the focus here is on infill and redevelopment. And do it in a way, again, that marries up with what we heard from people as we talked to them, and that is we want options to be able to get around other than being in a car. We want to be able to walk. We want to be able to use transit. We want to be able to use bicycles to get to where we want to go. So those two things come together under this particular goal. Again, a series of goals and objectives to support how the city is going to get there. The big idea is centers and corridors. What you're seeing on the map on the screen are the corridors, the multimodal corridors that have been identified in the comprehensive plan. And along each one of those corridors, there's a series of centers that are showing up in the purple and the blue colors that you see on the map. Those centers are where mixed use, compact, walkable development will happen. Those centers were organized and designed around several concepts. The key concept being when we looked along each one of the different corridors and we identified where there was existing business or commercial zoning or multifamily zoning, and they became areas eligible for a center redevelopment. They did not encroach into single-family areas that are zoned for single-family homes. So you can see that not all of these areas are perfect circles. The areas are designed around a focal point within a walk shed. There's a quarter-mile core area. There's another quarter-mile edge area. The core areas where the highest intensities take place. The edge areas are where development densities start to decrease and get down to the same level and size as the surrounding neighborhoods. We put together a series of design guidelines that should support the update of the zoning ordinance. Those design guidelines in the comprehensive plan were used to help us put together the Central Beach plan that you all have seen. There are three center types. One is regional center. There's two regional centers that are in the plan. One is the town center. The second is the Central Beach area. Highest intensities, more job-oriented. You have city centers, which are lower intensity, balance between jobs and housing, and then local centers, which are more residentially oriented and even lower density. So that's the organizations of the centers. And they're supported by multimodal corridors, primarily the Virginia Beach Boulevard and the Princess Anne Road Independence Boulevard corridors, in terms of making sure that whatever happens along those multimodal corridors is supportive of the centers themselves and multimodal transportation. I need to say before I go on to the next slide that the SGAs, the currently adopted SGAs, are considered centers in the plan. Economic sustainability and diversity, being able to take the assets of Virginia Beach, which are the natural features and resources of the city, to attract businesses, to sustain the businesses that are here and help diversify businesses in the city. One of the things in the economic development plan was that the importance of a town center in terms of attracting new kinds of jobs. So that is one of the reasons. That's one of the motivations behind creating additional centers in the city. One of the things we heard consistently as we were talking to the public was a concern about young people in the city moving away from the city because there weren't places for them to be within the city. And again, that reflects back on the center concept, places that are more urban in context. Again, there's a series of economic sustainability and diversity goals within the plan. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. The focal point for economic development in terms of land within the city are the strategic growth areas and other centers that have been identified in the plan, as well as special economic growth areas. Most of those are located around Oceana, and there's some opportunities potentially for more land around the Oceana Naval Air Base. Burton Station, I think, presents some interesting possibilities in terms of economic development. And then the last is the Princess Anne Commons area, which is being guided by the ITA master plan. So those we've targeted areas for economic development within the city in support of that overall goal. The other thing that we heard from people was the need for community identity and connections. And this is a big city. There's a lot of different communities throughout the city, whether you're in Centerville, Green Run, North End, Little Neck, Great Neck, down in Kempsville. And the idea here is to start recognizing and embracing the unique character of all those communities so that they can embrace and let other people embrace the identity of those communities. So that's facet number one of this particular goal. The second is we heard from a lot of people that they wanted to have a place that was within walking, biking distance of where they lived, where they could congregate with other people within the communities and other neighborhoods within communities for farmers markets and other civic activities. And again, there's a series of goals and objectives behind that. A neighborhood well-being and safety was on everybody's mind. The focal point here is on making sure that neighborhoods, the city pays attention to neighborhoods through a neighborhood monitoring program, and that existing neighborhood plans are updated as needed. New neighborhood plans are put together as needed. And to give you an example, Shore Drive is a plan that needs to be updated, and we heard from the people in CTEC about that being a plan that needs to be updated. And then finally, housing attainment and diversity. You all were talking about that earlier. Again, there's a series of goals and objectives focused in on that particular objective. So how's the plan updated? First thing is making sure that you start paying attention to how you create the environmental open space framework and the linear park system that within that framework. Continue existing programs to support agriculture, including rural zoning, maintaining the agricultural reserve program, the open space program, and conservation easements. One of the things that's going to have to happen is being able to support and enhance and incentivize the development of centers along the multimodal corridors, economic development, making sure that that's happening in a way that's consistent with the economic development plan, and then the transformation of corridors to the city to make walking and biking and transit safer and more viable options. And then back to the housing and neighborhoods, update the neighborhood plans, as I mentioned before, creating the neighborhood quality program, and then implementing recommendations from the affordable housing study, which you all recently reviewed. So the last thing we presented to the public at those meetings is what's next in the update process. We told them that once we got through with the public meetings, we would take that back to the Planning Commission, which we did on October the 8th, that we would brief you all, which we are doing this afternoon on the 14th. We're continuing to receive comments through October the 31st to make sure that everybody has a chance to chime in, including comments from you. Planning Commission, as Kathy said, will have another chance to review the final draft plan and then make a recommendation to you about whether to approve or deny the plan. So moving on to, that was the information that we presented at the public meetings. And then we did have 2 public meetings in September. The first was on the 17th. It was at the convention center. 45 people attended, 25 people signed in. The second was held on the 18th, and that was down at the municipal center across the street. 32 people attended. These are the comments that we received at the convention center meeting. Will people change the way they live and travel? And the response is, if you change context, yes, indeed, they will change how they get about and travel and live. The town center is an example of, I remember back in the day, it was Pembroke Mall, and that was pretty much all that was there, and the only way you could get there was by automobile. Now, when you get there, there's an opportunity to walk and be in a very different environment than it was back when I was a kid. Need to incorporate health care into community hubs. A policy was added to reflect that. Will the CTAC plan be updated? The plan right now, CTAC is a suburban focus area. That there's some policies that are attached to that. They will be revisited and a neighborhood plan developed for CTAC. Why haven't strategic growth area plans happened? They have happened to a certain degree. Pembroke Resort area and Burton Stations are being actively redeveloped. But there's more to be done to make these things happen. One of the first and foremost things is to update the zoning ordinance to make sure that it's clear to developers what the expectations are in terms of developing within these areas. And the other thing is just getting a city getting a better handle on what it's going to take from a market perspective in order to make these things happen. Need to incorporate schools and safe travel to schools. That objective was added to the plan based on the comment. Will there be an urban tree canopy in the plan? Policy was included in the plan in the earlier draft, as well as references to the urban forest management plan. Have citizens bought into SGAs? I think when we went through the process, I think there was a clear recognition that in order to protect the Green Line, there had to be, and for the city to continue to grow, there had to be a different way of developing within the city. So there was support from just about everybody we talked to about infill development and redevelopment. Has the plan been evaluated for success or failure? We've had a number of public meetings with staff, meeting with the Planning Commission. So this has been thoroughly vetted. And what can happen quickly and inexpensively, I don't think anything is inexpensive these days, but zoning ordinance update is something that should be a top priority. And then I think there's an opportunity to start working on creating the environmental and open space framework, just more than anything else, just to understand where the synergies can come from to make that happen. And I think there are quite a few. The public comments that we got from the municipal center meeting, most of those focused in on the Green Line rural context area. A lot of questions about what's going on in that area. How are things going to change in that area moving forward? The response is that the existing plans and policies in that area are not going to change. The boundaries for the transition area, the boundaries for Princess Anne Commons and the ITA master plan will not change. We did let them know that you all are looking into the possibility of updating the ITA master plan. Whatever comes out of that update will then be reflected in an amendment to the comprehensive plan after it's adopted. We received a question about a data center that was being proposed in Pungo. No one was aware of that. Concerns about battery energy storage systems, so that level of detail would have to be addressed in the zoning update. And then a comment was made, the plan focuses on landscape rather than people. We let them know that there are some people-related elements within the comprehensive plan in terms of attainable housing, neighborhood monitoring, economic development, but then there's other city plans and programs that are more specifically addressing those kinds of things. So that's the feedback we got from the public meeting. We are in the process of updating the plan itself. We have addressed all of the comments we've received so far from the Planning Commission, as well from city staff. We are working on streamlining Chapter 7, those design guidelines, to make sure that they line up with what the city needs to have in order to review developments more effectively, and how to make sure that the zoning update happens as effectively as possible. And then we did present all this information to the Planning Commission, and they had a few comments that they wanted us to consider. Kathy mentioned one of them was to emphasize economic development. In the current draft, economic development, as you saw, is one of the overarching goals, economic sustainability and diversity. But in each one of the chapters, in each one of the context areas, we do address economic development and the special economic development that happens within those areas. So, for instance, in the inland area, it's maintaining traditional industries and diversifying as envisioned by the economic development plan. In the coastal area, it's year-round tourism and making sure that that's healthy and vibrant. In the green line, it's those unique and special uses that happen within the Princess Anne Commons area. And then finally, with rural, not to be overlooked as an economic resource for the city, is maintaining viable agriculture, as I mentioned earlier. We have focused in on the locations for economic development, including the SGAs, the SEGAs, the additional land around Oceana Naval Air Station, and whatever happens with the update of the ITA. Having said that, though, as Kathy mentioned, we recognize we need to embrace economic development a little bit more in the introduction, which we will do, and just to make sure that it's clear that that's an important aspect to the city. We also had a comment about the population forecasts that are in the plan. So the population forecasts are based on what's prepared and provided by the University of Virginia's Weldon Center. They have forecasts out to 2050. We reported those forecasts. Those forecasts typically reflect historical trends. They don't get into dynamics sort of moving forward and what happens in terms of policies and investments that different places make. So the region itself, overall Hampton Roads region, by the year 2050 is expected to grow by 300,000 people, which is a pretty robust rate of growth. However, the city, according to the Weldon Center, is only going to attract about 30,000 people, which is about 10% of that growth. So the comprehensive plan has been put together primarily and purposely to attract more of the region's growth, economic development growth, and population and housing growth. And different strategies are needed in order to make that happen, given the fact that the green line and the blue line are going to limit what you can do in terms of expansion. So, and I guess the silver lining in this is the city of Richmond. I took a peek at their population forecast and population trends. They're a landlocked entity, but their population has been growing over the last 10 and 20 years, and that's because of the city being more aggressive about how it's going to attract growth into the city. And we did hear from a lot of people that the young people in Virginia Beach, a lot of them are heading up to Richmond because it's a more vibrant place. So, that's the intent here with the comprehensive plan, is creating a context that's going to attract a greater variety of people to the beach and really take advantage of the natural resources the city has. So the plan positions the city to attract more economic development and redevelopment through the centers and the other strategies. One of the comments that was made at the Planning Commission is, have we over allocated or over identified centers in the plan? And the answer is, I don't think so, because market demands are going to dictate what happens within those centers. And the centers still allow the possibility, if you want to redevelop within the center according to existing zoning, you can certainly do that. But if you want to do something different, more intense within that area, then the goal is to have that more intense development come together in a way that creates a compact, walkable, vibrant kind of place. So that's where we are. Next steps in the process, again, is for you all to review, give us comments in terms of your review. We'll take that back to the Planning Commission in December, and then have them recommend how to move it forward back to you. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Stacy, Jennifer, and then Worth.
Thank you. So that for us to review and then get back to you with comments or questions, when is that? How do we?
We'll take comments now.
Okay.
And then if there's any additional comments that you want to send our way, please do so.
One, there have been a number of items that have come before council in my short time on council on land use where staff has denied the application, but planning overwhelmingly approves, and then the council approves. And so it leads me to believe that obviously there are items that are tying staff's hands in their ability to approve a project. And one of those I ask is that there's a pattern book.
Yeah, commercial, yeah.
And, just in this whole idea of getting back to making infill a priority, do we not need to look at some of these items that are going to keep coming up?
So yes, that's a great question. And I know we've been dealing with this a lot with the commercial area pattern book and the reuse of Rite Aids, for instance, turning into car washes. So this is the nice thing about plans. When we see something is not working, we can go back, look at it, and amend it where we need to. And that's what we're talking about right now, is whether or not we should take a look at that plan and amend it to reflect market needs and the desire of Planning Commission and City Council.
Thank you. One other question I have is, we talk about the green line and we need to look at land use south of the green line. You mentioned light industrial being in there. Have we identified any areas south of the green line that might be prime or available for residential development?
So what we're waiting for as part of the comprehensive plan, the ITA plan is part of the comprehensive plan. And City Council has given us direction to look at the ITA plan and consider updating it in future steps over the next few months. So that's where that would specifically identify those areas for potential light industrial development, for instance. And then that would just become part of the comprehensive plan. This is overarching, and then those specific plans give the details of what should go where.
Okay, we're going to go Jennifer, and then Worth, Barbara, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Will you go to slide 45, please? For this third bulleted point, I don't know if this was a question from the public, but how would you measure success and failures? I guess that's my question when thinking about the successfulness or failure of our plan. How do we define if it's working or not? So how did you address that question?
Yeah, I think I think we went out and we asked people through a number of meetings about what's important to the city of Virginia Beach. So as I said, what the kind of feedback that we received all the way from the very first focus groups that we had. There were some things that were very, very consistent no matter where we went. One was environmental protection. The second was maintaining the green and the blue lines. The third is, and this kept coming up again and again, the ability to walk and bike and use transit to get to destinations. Attainable housing was on people's mind, and safety and security of neighborhoods. So that all of that became sort of the foundational pieces for putting the plan together. And then what we've been doing through the process is just making sure are the objectives, the policies, the concepts we're putting in the plan, are they actually achieving those goals moving forward? And we kept getting feedback through meetings, through surveys that we had. It wasn't unanimous, but it was well past the majority of people were saying, yes, this does help us achieve those goals.
Okay, Worth, and then Barbara, Michael, and Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Sinclair, for the presentation and your work on it. This page here, 45, of the fourth bullet point, what can happen quickly and inexpensively. Can you give an example of that first response? Zoning update is top priority. Does this contemplate changing current?
Yes. Yeah.
Like B4 to B2 or?
To those details, I'm not Kathy, I want to speak to those, but I'll speak at a high level concept. Our previous plans before assumed Virginia Beach was on like a perpetual growth pattern, right? And there will always be land available for us to grow in. This comprehensive plan is really pivoting us to focus more on infill and redevelopment, right? So the zoning code doesn't reflect that. There have been spot updates to this to the zoning code to kind of accommodate for it all, but this zoning code sometimes is inconsistent with what is actually happening in Virginia Beach and from what the market is bringing to us as well. So that needs to be evaluated in a comprehensive way and then brought back to the Public Planning Commission and City Council for you all to adopt. It's going to be a lift similar to the comprehensive plan process, but it's really needed. We've been hearing from developers, from homeowners, from builders that the zoning code isn't consistent with what's actually happening in real time in Virginia Beach. And Kathy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
And we can do that legally?
Yeah, legally you can. yeah. The process that I spelled out. Yeah.
But people, property rights.
The process I spelled out. Yeah, I mean, there's a downzoning and things like that. Those are some things that you're going to have to navigate as well. And you don't necessarily go to that level, but yeah, we'll have to take all those things into account. The city attorney's office will look at it as well to make sure that we're not giving you all anything that'll cause a legal issue.
Page 50, thank you. Page 51, okay. You cite an economic development plan. Can you show us or tell us where that is?
The economic development plan that the city put together?
Yeah, that's the economic development strategy that's through the Department of Economic Development.
So that gets updated as well, right? So the last one we did was kind of right around COVID. So I think
that's spot on.
Yeah, and it does.
So that's a part of this?
Kind of reference a little bit, kind of sort of, right? Reference, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara.
Yes, I hope I can have several questions here. You said that we had directed you to update the ITA plan. Is that by going out and doing what we did before, hiring a consultant and doing the whole thing? Or what are we planning on doing and updating the ITA plan?
So City Council at the retreat gave us direction to work on reconciling 3 uses in the ITA: active and passive recreation, municipal uses, and also expansion for economic growth and economic development. We're working on a plan right now to scope out how we're going to do that with City Council. It likely involves using a consultant to some extent, and they'll work with us to amend that plan, and then we'll present that plan to Planning Commission and City Council for consideration.
Well, I would hope that the public would have input at the first, not at the end, so that we know whether we're heading in the direction that the public is interested in, or the council for that matter. So to do something and then bring it in, I think is kind of backward. And as far as the ITA, I thought it kind of came up with the development, when the Development Authority suggested that we have an industrial park in that area rather than what we had always planned it to be. And so I think that has not been resolved. But one of the things that I see, and it's having all these different versions is kind of hard. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the final version or not. But I do notice that industrial development has been inserted in the area below the green line, which it never has before. And I think we really have to determine what we mean by industrial development. And it usually says light industrial. And what I find out now is that we really don't have a specific difference between light industrial and heavy industrial. It's, what did you say, Mark, in your answer to me? Something like it's not a bright line. But this whole concept of industrial development, I think somebody needs to talk about just what we mean by that and what it's going to involve. And I see that really taking on ahead of everything else. But when we don't have a difference between heavy industrial and light industrial, and we always say it's going to be light industrial, what are we meaning?
I'd say that's probably
I was
enough.
looking at Mark, he had given me the distinction.
Probably going to be handled as part of the zoning code adjustment.
Well, it definitely can be addressed at that point, but there isn't a clear definition or distinction between light and heavy industrial in the current code. Mm-hmm. And that's why I said to you, there's not a bright line distinction. It really talks about what is and what is not appropriate in a relationship to the adjoining uses. And so part of that is left to the eye of the beholder. And so it probably is something that we need to look at from a definitional perspective.
I notice every time it's mentioned, it's called light industrial, but then I see some of the things that have been approved, and if it's got to be heavy industrial, there's got to be a difference there. And I think if we're going to head down this track of saying, okay, we're now going to have light industrial in all this area below the green line, we really need to know what light industrial is. And right now, it's anything. And I'm afraid that we're going to be getting ahead of the public when we seem to be adopting policies before we're adopting changes in the plan. And I really have to wonder about some of these statements about, well, the green line is in the same location and hasn't changed. Well, maybe the line hasn't, but the policies sure have. And I think we really need to make a distinction between policy and whatever else we're talking about, because we are making a lot of policy changes as I see it, and we're getting ahead of the public and the comprehensive plan. It's a great concern that I have, and I hear it from people. And of course, District 2 seems to be where a lot of this is more likely to happen, so maybe I'm just hearing it from my constituents, and that's something that we really need to be aware of, but I'm certainly hearing a lot of it.
Okay, Michael, Josh, Worth.
Thank you. Well, Mayor, like others, I have a few questions, so please bear with me. Could you help me understand, first of all, restate in very simple terms, what is a comprehensive plan?
A comprehensive plan is an overarching document that focuses in on land use and development patterns, and again, those impacts to things like the natural systems, infrastructure, and things like that. It is a policy document. It's not a regulatory document. It guides regulatory documents. It guides investment the city makes, but it is intended to be a policy document.
How is that different from a regulatory document?
So the comprehensive plan informs the zoning ordinance. This is where legal opinion is probably going to be warranted, but the zoning ordinance is where legally defines the rights of what you can do with a piece of property. The comprehensive plan does not do that.
Would you say in some respects a comprehensive plan is an aspirational guiding document?
It is.
Not a, so say it's a policy document, but it's not a, and to use your word, a regulatory document.
It's not.
And the reason I'm drawing this out is because a lot of the conversations that I've heard many conversations in the time that I've been here that I think many people who participate in these discussions, and I'm still learning too, but that there's a difference between a zoning ordinance and an ordinance and a comprehensive plan, which is just that, it's a plan, right? Because sometimes
That's correct.
do you deviate from a plan? And are you a consultant?
Yes,
Yeah. Do you assist cities with developing their comprehensive plans across the country?
I do.
Yeah. And so how often do you think, is it a norm that that city would be change their comprehensive plan or potentially deviate from it if needed?
That's up to the jurisdiction and the dynamics of the jurisdiction. If you have a stable jurisdiction that it hasn't been changing much and it doesn't anticipate changing, then the updates are infrequent. A place like Virginia Beach, where the dynamics are changing dramatically in terms of, if you think about it, since the city was first incorporated back in '63, I believe, it grew out. It was a suburb of Norfolk, and it grew out. That no longer can happen. The city has run out of land unless it starts developing south of the green and the blue lines. And that's a policy decision that the city started making back in 1979. So,
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So the city made a policy decision back in 1979 to establish the green line to keep growth from going down into rural areas, and it reinforced it with the
That's
blue
a
line.
transition area, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So,
And I'm not trying to be combative, but I think some of the way you're presenting the information gives the impression that there's supposed to be no activity below the green line, but it was established as a transition area.
Right, right.
And then the process for developing a comprehensive plan, and I mean this with I mean this very respectfully, but this is the first time I've ever seen you. Is it normal to develop a plan without the input of the elected officials or other sort of stakeholders?
It again depends on the jurisdiction that we work for. So we follow the
guidance.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I guess I'm just curious why, since the 11 members of this body are the elected representatives of the people of our great community, the incredible people, why we get to this process without being invited to participate ourselves on behalf of the people we represent. Is that prescribed by state law?
No, sir. And I believe that along the way, when we had our focus groups and our public meetings, we did invite city council members. We did provide links and continuous CCSRs, city council staff reports, indicating where we were in the process and the link to the latest draft on the webpage, and asked for comment along the way. I know that we also provided 2 hard copies of the document, so you had the most recent draft, and we were looking for comment on that. And we did receive some comment from our council members.
But no formal invitation to participate or to provide an opportunity for certain individuals that in our service to the community we determined would have valuable input to participate in that conversation. I think we could do better, actually, having gone through this. This is the first time I've done it. I'm not, here to indict the process, but now having participated in it or not, I actually think it could be a lot better. So that's some feedback, but we still have time. That's the good news.
We do.
Could you go to slide 24? And that's about the context areas. While you're pulling that up, I'll just start my question. Are those so-called context areas, are they new to the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
And how were they determined?
They were determined based on primarily the green line and the blue line, and recognizing that what happens south of the blue line is going to be different than what happens between the green line and the blue line. which then left the land to the north of the Green Line. And then we recognized that the coastal area of Virginia Beach is really unique in a lot of different ways. So we've separated that out as a context
Well,
area.
I guess my critique here is that so is the inland. The district that I serve entirely is comprised within the inland district, and I grew up within the inland district, and I know the diversity of zoning and planning that exists within. So it sort of feels like this was created around the transition area at the exclusion of the diversity and robustness. A largest portion of residents live above in what you call the inland area. And I guess I'll have to read the chapters a little bit further in depth to determine how that is accounted for in the plan. But I think the presence of simply 4 of those categories leaves out the majority of the people who live here.
So to that point, so what we were looking for here is basically structurally, how is the city put together? And the development patterns in the inland area are very similar throughout. The communities may be different, but the development patterns it's a suburban development pattern. But to address your specific, I mean, there was something we heard through the process, and that's why that foundational goal of community identity and connections is in the plan. So within the inland area, within each of the different areas, there's a recognition that there are unique communities throughout each of these areas that should be embraced and worked with as unique entities within this overall area. So that's the purpose of that particular foundational objective or goal.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to learn a little bit more about it. I have some issues interpreting that what might be true in Little Neck is this applies in Centerville. They're quite different. On the positive note, on slide 25, I'm happy to see the inclusion of arts and culture as an identification of part of what makes a community great. Appreciate that. Sorry, I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. You said you have received feedback, community participation. And has that feedback and participation mostly been driven by the surveys that you released online and the meetings that you held, the public meetings?
Yes.
So I guess I'm just curious if that's a true reflection of the people who live and work here. And I'm not in any way discounting the concerns that were generated during those workshops, because I know they're meritorious. I hear them myself, and I agree with them. But I also hear a prioritization of jobs, economic prosperity, access to economic prosperity, desire for low taxes, that schools, access to excellent schools and educational opportunities and excellent services, and concern about outmigration, which you noted. But if you just read the report, at least as it's been presented in this format, I'm not sure those come through. Thank you.
Okay, Josh, and then Worth, and then Hutch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much, sir, for the presentation and the years of work. Kathy, to you and your team, Hank. I know it's a lot of work. A couple of just comments, and I've heard some of the conversations around what may seem to be a lack of references to economic development and growth. A lot of that is in here, and I mean, especially and the housing stuff in particular, and the SGAs, growing in SGAs, and using kind of responsible and resilient approaches to growth. But what struck me is in these goals, the overarching goals. I don't know if you've got one on that where they're listed in the slide, but
yeah, let me go back there.
It reads almost inverse to what our council priorities were during our strategic retreat. So I think to Councilmember Lucci's point, we are resolved in terms of, focused on workforce development, job growth, economic growth that reaches everybody. And it's so important too, because all of those things pay for everything else underneath it. And so I think, and even reading through the document, because the overarching goals are repeated throughout the context areas, and some of this ordering kind of almost reinforces itself and upon itself. So I think if you kind of took a look at it with those lenses, you might actually working with substantially the same document, kind of meet some of the concerns that were raised.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to, and I'm going to pile on to Councilmember Lucci's comments about the arts and culture being something we should feature and talk about in the comp plan. And it's also a really good opportunity to throw in some references to the creative neighborhood grants and some of the arts funding opportunities that we've unlocked. And just a general observation, I mean, if the public, after, these years of meetings and input that we've taken in, has, and as we should, a strong desire to protect our rural and agricultural South, and that necessarily means a turn toward infill development and redevelopment, that has important consequences when it comes down to planning commission applications and downstream when we're talking about the Rite Aid on the corner or the church down the street, or some of these kind of places where we've seen some resistance from the community. So it's difficult. I mean, and I know we all share in this difficulty where people say, oh, we don't want it here, but we don't want it here either. And so it kind of puts us in a tough spot. So and I guess lastly, I remember a prior version of this document with the names of the context areas, and the context area that you now call the Green Line context area was named something else, and it was named the courthouse context area, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And I understand, I've watched a planning commission workshop where the naming issue is discussed, and I understand kind of where you're coming from and where they were coming from. But I think, Green Line really just seems to me like build a wall, and I don't think that's what we want it to mean. I mean, because there's a lot of other things that go on down here, and I wish the councilwoman was here. But athletic uses, our city government is here. We've got retail, we've got medical, we've got military. So just to characterize this area, which is a really important area and one that we do need to have an eye toward preservation, I think it oversimplifies things, and I think it sets the community up for confrontation where none is necessarily. That's all I got. And I'll have some comments, and I'll send them to you on specific sections and chapters. But thanks for the work.
Thank you.
There you go. Worth, touch, cash.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick follow-up question on the issue of light industrial and the definition of Mrs. Warren. If you could answer the question. Currently, right now, in our zoning ordinance, zoning code, we have I-1 is light industrial, I-2 is, so I-1 permits certain, it's specified item by item.
That's correct. There's a use table associated with both. Yes.
Okay, Hutch.
So just to dovetail off what Councilmember Lucci was saying on his one point, he had many good points, I thought, Michael. The plan, like we said, is a starting point, right? And it's aspirational. Doesn't mean it has to change, but it's aspirational. And just having a little bit of experience, well, quite a bit of experience from the fire department and the emergency management of our snowstorms, our active shooter, hurricanes, and then being on the USAR team I was the plans officer for a number of years. So Haiti and some different things is, you have great plans and you have all the best intention of following them pretty well to the T until you're in Haiti and there's 2 children that are trapped subterranean and, you have a safety plan. Well, what exactly is your safety plan at that point? you're trying to bring two children out, or the gentleman out of the, in the department of, it doesn't matter, in Haiti, but the whole building's on top of him and he's been there for 7 days. So you know what I mean? You're trying to do the best you can with the tools you have, is what I'm trying to say. And I just think we have to be careful when we're doing that to not tighten the screws down, but so much so that we have some room to maneuver. It's what we had just said for Mr. McKenzie on the legislative stuff, some of the issues that are very important to us. So I just think we have to pay attention to that. And then I just have one question. Did we do a district level attendance or anything like that? Did we find out during any of these processes, or all of them, like was District 1 most represented, District 2, or was there a breakdown on any of that? Because I think, quite honestly, when I see some of that and the way the order is what Councilman Schulman was saying, and not that we're trying to draw it, not that it matters, because who shows up can make the deal, right? I mean, that's only fair. But, seeing that the way that is, it does feel like there might have been a large number of District 2 people that attended, which is a good thing. And again, if they're the ones that show up, they can help develop the plan.
That's a great question. We made sure that we hosted meetings in every single district several times, and we have a map that shows that pretty much the entire city was covered within a 15-minute drive to a public meeting.
But the attendance is really what I'm at. I understand we did our due diligence. What I'm asking is, was District 1 represented in a good amount? Was District 7, District 4?
They were all fairly lightly attended, to be honest. That's why we were so aggressive with sending out emails and going out to the public, so that we kind of noticed that attendance was.
And I get it. You still get the flavor of what people are wanting. I'm not suggesting that.
There's also an issue of people not signing in. So we had sign-in sheets at every meeting,
Sure.
So we've got a rough estimate on each meeting that we had, but we don't have the specific numbers because not everyone signs in.
Yeah, and I do believe that we have subject matter experts for a reason to compile it. But again, back to what Councilman Berlucci was saying, I think this is, and I'm glad we have this time built in the end. And I know y'all did invite us. I've got it, and you know how that goes. And then we try to read it, and it's a big document, I need a lot more pictures for me, but,
you should have seen the last one.
But, no, it's fantastic. But the bottom line is that we just have to make sure, if we're doing this due diligence, we need to make sure that we are putting that in at this point and don't miss our opportunity, is what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Okay, Patrick.
And Mr. Mayor, the Planning Commission took time, right? So remember, this got started before COVID, and then we came back and presented to you all, hey, council, COVID happened, and we probably should stop this, right? And council agreed and said stop it and start it up after COVID. And then Planning Commission got it, and Planning Commission asked for more time as well. Council can ask for more time. There isn't a legal requirement to say you got to get this done by like January 1 or something like that. So if you all feel like it's not cooked and there's more feedback that you all need, right? Take your time and let us know, right? Because this is not poured in concrete. You all determine when the concrete is poured and set. So if you feel like you need more time and more engagement, more dialogue on it, by all means, let us know.
Okay, Captain Rosemary.
Yeah, I want to thank you. You are the expert on this, but I'm listen to the people. So I think City Manager Patrick Duhaney said it best. This was started during COVID or before COVID. I wasn't in office, so I'm very engaged in my community. So with that being said, if you sent me an email, I get a lot of them. And so I think Councilman Bellucci said it best, that we are very active. And so if you're having it in District 7, I want to be there. And sometimes I need like a second reminder. Hey, this one is about the comprehensive meeting that's very important, right? And so Cash Green is very active in his district. With that being said, the sidewalks, I want to make sure that this is a very important point for my district, from District 10 leading to 7, Lynn Haven Parkway, right? Crosswalks. man, we've had some fatalities. And so if I were at one of these meetings, I would want to make sure to highlight crosswalks, right? We built a large portion of our city without crosswalks, right? So going forward, thank you, sir, for your expertise. Lots of schooling. I have lots of heart.
To your specific point, though, what we did do in the plan is we identified corridor types, multimodal corridor types, Lynn Haven Parkway being designated as a multimodal corridor, which included guidelines, design guidelines to make walking, biking, transit more safe and more viable options. So the plan lays down that framework that then needs to get picked up by the investments the city is making through the capital improvement program.
Okay. So in closure, I would just love the opportunity for, I don't know how we can do this, but I would love for you to at least have participation for, I think, my district, because I was sworn in 2024. I would love to make sure that I can help with marketing that, because sometimes we miss, like I think someone said it best, maybe District 2 was represented, but I don't know if District 7 was represented. And
Everyone was, the whole city.
Okay.
But I think Councilmember Jackson Green, like you said, you got on, and maybe some of the meetings were already done before you got there. If you'd like a comprehensive plan specific town hall, we can work with you all on that. If any council member would like a council member specific town hall, we can work with you all on that.
Okay. He answered it. So thank you and great job. I have the thick book at home too. So I've got a lot of reading, right? I'm grateful for the pictures, but most importantly, I just want to make sure we have public input that's relevant to me being on council. Thank you.
Okay, Rosemary.
So I want to, I know this is a lot of hard work, and it's very extensive and long, and it's taken a very long time to get to this point. And I really appreciate everything that's been put into it. You're asking for comments. I do have a couple. One, Councilman Shulman, I really agree with the points that you brought up. I thought they were really, really important, as well as Councilman Hutchison. I think the overarching goals should reflect what the goals of the council were. I mean, when we had our retreat, we had economic development as our number one goal. And it's kind of lost in the middle. Attainable housing, it's down at the bottom. I don't think that's really where we have set our goals. So I'd like to relook at these overarching goals and maybe could realign them more with what the goals of this council are. On these context areas, my comments are, I think most of them are pretty clear, like the rural area, we know where the rural area is. Coastal, we know where the coastal is. Inland, we know where the inland is. But the green area, I don't think most people would know where the green area is. This used to be called the courthouse. And I think everybody knows where the courthouse is. So I'd like to see if we go back and rethink the name for that context area, because I don't think it's as reflective as the others are to really tell people what those areas are. So that's my two comments on this.
Okay, Michael?
And I want to revisit the concept of participation. And because the numbers that I saw, and I don't have the information about how many people participated virtually or online with through the surveys, at least not on hand, but maybe it's available. But I did see those who participated in the in-person forums, and Hank, I know you put a lot of work into this, and I respect that work. I also wonder, though, if I'm just trying to understand the responsiveness to the citizen input that was received, because if you're angry about something or if you're not happy with something, then you're driven to go to a public meeting. But most of the people that I know, of the 450 50,000+ people who live in the city of Virginia Beach. They love living in Virginia Beach. And our citizen satisfaction survey shows that more than 80% of the people are happy with the direction of the city and the services they receive. And those people, I need to understand a little bit more how those people's perspectives were incorporated into this plan, or was it largely driven by the people who showed up? And I don't know what district they're from, and frankly, neither do you. What is the connection between the responsiveness that's reflected in here, and because happy people don't necessarily show up, and they need to be accounted for too, and there's a lot of them out there.
Yes.
Patrick, if you don't know. Patrick.
So go ahead.
Okay. So this started out with surveys, and then also there was like focus groups, and there were several focus group meetings, and then there was community meetings around the community, and some of them were virtual, some of them were in person as well. The in-person meetings and the surveys, and also the in-person meetings, you always end up getting a similar flavor to the folks that come to council for public comments and things like that, right? It's never truly fully representative of the entire community, right? This is the process, right? The process was, it went to planning commission, they got some feedback. They also had some public convenings for the public to listen to them and provide comments and feedback as well. This is the process as well where it comes to the governing board and the council who's going to adopt this to see if it's ready to go, right? We're hearing some feedback from you all because you all have to adopt this, that there's still some more things that you all want to be done to make it more reflective of where this body possibly wants to be. So we'll make those changes, but the participation is never perfect. We tried to hit it from multiple angles, right? There was a focus group of several people as well. How many focus groups meetings were there? 10. But there were 10 focus groups meetings, right? Yeah, then there were.
How are they comprised?
How are they comprised?
What we got was and we had at least one council member at several of the focus group meetings. We asked the city to provide us with stakeholders from different perspectives. So we had homeowners association presidents. We had people representing the active transportation group, people representing economic development, people representing just various perspectives. And
we can put it in our report.
And we purposely started out with that to deal with what you're talking about. Very open-ended the way we set that up. We didn't put any issues out there on the table. We just said, okay, what matters in Virginia Beach? What is working in Virginia Beach? What's not working in Virginia Beach? What are your aspirations moving forward? And so they were very, very, as I said it in my presentation, the feedback we got from every one of those focus groups is really consistent. And by the way, it was consistent with the visioning work that was done, I think, back in 2014, something like that. So that really created the foundation for what we did. And it wasn't oriented, again, toward any issue, any specific issue. It was just what's working, what's not working, what do you envision for the city of Virginia Beach? That's when we started hearing about, like, for instance, we were concerned about our kids leaving Virginia Beach and moving to other places. I mean, we got a lot of very, very similar concepts. That was then used to set the stage for our first round of public meetings where we had people chime in. What do you think of these? Are these resonating with you? These aspirations resonating with you? Again, not into any specific issues, but so these goals that you see here, which I hope reflect, in fact, I've taken a look at what you all did in terms of your priorities, and I think they're all embedded in here. The order may need to change, but where you're thinking and what we were hearing from people that we talked to in the focus groups and follow up to the focus groups are very consistent with these overarching goals.
Well, they're not going to stay here without jobs.
Right. And it's hard, I mean, where do you start the list? But I think going back and revisiting based on what you all came up with is something we can certainly do.
Okay, Josh and Amelia.
Just really quickly, and I went to a couple of your focus groups, and I thought, the early ones were small, and then you kind of made them a little larger, and were there the same, half a dozen people, probably, going to multiple of them? Yeah, there were, but I'm sure y'all discounted for that. And I know the ones I saw were really good. And people did really hone in on, especially these corridors and the connectivity and those themes, and certainly environmental sustainability. I mean, a lot of people were talking about that, and really, I think accurately reflected what I saw. But yeah, I'm sure there were, like I said, the same half a dozen or usual folks that kind of go to more than one meeting and have their input heard more than once.
Okay, Amelia, then Worth.
Well, to your defense, again, thanks so much for the report that you've given. I remember where at one point you actually asked council members to make sure to go out into their district and identify certain groups of people to come. And then at that point, when they came, you try not to put them all on one table or one group. You had them dispersed in different places so that people could hear, because active listening is very important. And so I, appreciate that you all did make that effort. Of course, some voices didn't come out as loud. Maybe some felt a little shy or intimidated in that they weren't with just their group. But that was the point. You was trying to get a more diverse feedback from everyone. So maybe next time you go out, you may have something like what Councilman Green said, specific district where like minds, they may be much more open to, saying more than what you see. Because yes, we have some districts that, maybe they meet almost every week or once a month and so forth, so they've already gelled into a certain mindset. So that would be my suggestion, is having, something per district.
It worked.
Just real quickly, if I could add into, on the local meetings, I also attended several, and I did see really a widespread representation of the community, business leaders, developers, but also civic league presidents, families. Was not, overflowing, but I still think, and I think you're hearing it today, that we want some more public input. I'd like to hear from my constituents more. Folks are not necessarily driven to come to these meetings because a lot of folks are interested in certain issues, but I think it does need some more airing. But I also would say we need maybe some consultants' recommendation as well. I mean, you all are trained experts on land use, and you see our overarching goals. How can we get there with a comprehensive plan? So, I mean, we're not perfect in the public. We need to hear from them, but let's also hear from the consultants.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you all very much, and I think it's pretty obvious that with this exercise we went through today, it just reaffirms that we really, what we already know. Virginia Beach is a very large, complex, complicated magnitude city of many facets. And once again, managing a city with, I believe, around 460,000 people, as diverse, we got agricultural, we got a downtown, we have Mount Trashmore, we got a lot of things, we got a lot of moving parts here. And, trying to come up with a plan that equals the complexity and the magnitude of what we're doing, it's a lengthy process. But, let me just, make a couple points, okay? Also, when we're developing the plan, the biggest game changer that I think we had in our history was Hurricane Matthew. That caused a major paradigm shift in the way that we function as a city. And, Patrick, and I bring up that before, the percentage of CIP that went into stormwater projects before Hurricane Matthew dramatically changed after, and that changed the way that we focused our economics. And then the economics changes that we had post-COVID, the inflation that we had, these were all drivers. Hutch was talking about changing, the plan. Because what's true today was true yesterday may not be true today. The United States Marine Corps no longer has assaulting beachheads as part of their game plan during a conflict. because you got to change the plan according to the reality of the world that we live in. And it's been a very, very changing world. And, this kind of reminds me, it's analogous to the way that we do the budget. It's long in process. We let the experts, come up with a framework, and then they put the pile of clay on the table for us to, to work it through. And I think Patrick was right. If we need more time on this or more input, definitely. But I've been to public engagements on a number of things over the years at the convention center, and we have more staff there than people showing up. And, that's God's honest truth. You can't compel people to participate. And I think to a valid point, the only people that show up have a vested interest or a single interest or what. It's rough getting the pulse on, a situation as complex as this. But I'll tell you what, and the other thing is the advantage of using a, consultant also, we find, best practices other cities are doing too, to find out, how, and do a compare and contrast of things. But once again, this is a huge, huge undertaking. And, it's a guide. But once again, I think one of the reasons that we're a deliberative body, we have to adapt to whatever comes up. We don't vote the same way on every, short-term rental project. Everyone is somewhat different. It's so unique, and it's up to us to be deliberative, get the information we need. But once again, I want to compliment Kathy and, the effort that's gone into it so far. This is a marathon, not a sprint. We got a ways to go, and we will get to where we need to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. We're going to get into council comments. I'm going to make something in it. Let me go ahead and kick it off. I think this is a very important thing, and I think Stacy brought forward a situation with the electronic bikes that we really have to, make a priority, because obviously we're getting a lot of feedback on it from people. And I'll tell you what, when I see, maybe ninth graders riding around electric bikes without a helmet and all that other thing, I think we have a problem of magnitude. And one of the things, with your concurrence as a body, is that, they'll put together a mayor's designated task force. And what I'm going to ask is each of one of you to first of all go along with the concept and try to find somebody who you think would be a benefit of this, that really can bring something, to the table. The thing is, I have an authority, I can do this, and it would save a very long process going through. And I think this would, really accent the fact that we consider the immediacy of the problem and, to confront it, dealing with it through Richmond and everything that's time consuming it with no guarantees. And we can, let's see if we can control our own destiny. And, the objective of the task force to renew the state and local laws, study public safety, healthcare risks. Along that way, we can, once again, look at best practices, what's going on in other cities, and recommend realistic and enforceable solutions, and then also come up with none of that is going to be meaningful unless we come up with an effective communication process and get it out to the public. So I encourage you to take a look at the list here. And we have two council members, Cummings and Hutchison, that have a vested interest is what's going on. Once again, I kind of convened the process improvement team, but, I kind of turned it over to other liaisons. But, if you two gentlemen would be, willing to, really, get this, going in a meaningful way and, show the direction. I think that, that your interest in this would really help facilitate things. But once again, if it's okay, I'm going to get in touch with me, come up with somebody that you would think, would be on it. Let's not, limit it to a certain number right now. Let's see what we get. And, to work with Mark and, let's get to an answer on this. Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the mayor contacted me on Friday and asked how best to expedite this. As council know, if the council was to create a task force, the council would have to create legislation, vote for it, then appoint it, right? The mayor is afforded authority to create a mayoral task force. The last time he's probably done more than this, but the last one that really speaks to me is when the mayor created a youth violence task force and they came up with a recommendation for Parks After Dark, right? Atlantic Avenue. No, I think that was a council one too. It wasn't okay. The mayor, okay, that was one, yeah. Okay, so this could go faster than it would take for us to go through the regular process. The mayor's asked that, you contact them and let them know. I'm going to work with them to kind of send out a report to you all on whoever you all pick, or even some options that he may have for you all to consider, and then with that, if council's okay with that, then we can we could probably save a month than the legislative process of getting a task force set up and also getting them appointed as well.
Yeah, Stacy.
You have a date when we're trying to kick this off?
ASAP. As soon as possible. That's why we're bringing it up today. Get the information to me, and we'll get it rolling within a week or two.
I'm having a town hall meeting on Monday with focused on e-bikes, and so I would imagine we'll have some folks there that would be very anxious to be part of this.
Yeah, one of the things I know that drives people nuts sometimes. I got my doctorate in organizational leadership, so a process wonk. What we could do, even if we get a number of volunteers, we can identify subject areas, and then we could do little mini ad hoc, groups that could get together to work on legislation, safety, and a few other things. The more people we involve, the more we get out. We don't want to make it complex or overburden. Let's get people that are willing to, to really participate. Especially, Hutch, you, if you don't mind, you had an accident on a bike.
Yes, I did.
And it was pretty serious.
Yeah.
And, once again, when we think about bike safety and we think about some of the casualties we've had on Shore Drive over the years, and all over the city, that's why I said this has to be, a very high importance thing. So let's get it rolling and let's make it a work in progress, and, we'll get to where we need. Michael.
Mayor, would you like us to email our recommendations to you, or just what's the mechanism?
You can, go ahead. I'll tell you what, go ahead and text me. That's that thing, and that way it's rapid. No, we can't do it.
Email or just send it to him in writing, and then I'll report back out on a list, and then council can confirm it.
Okay, that'd be good. Yeah, that's best.
Email or an official email account.
Yeah, that's right. Because the other thing is, we want this subject to FOIA. We want this transparent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right. Anybody else for council comments?
Yes.
Cash.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we're excited. Thank you, council, for passing where we could honor four-time Grammy Award winner Timberland, and it has just been a boost to not just District 7, but District 1 is included in that because of Bridle Creek Boulevard, and it not just District 7 and 1, all of the 7 cities have really been calling in, and I'll tell you this, it has been a highlight for our public school system that we have here in Virginia Beach. I'm going to tell you, that's what really the overarching theme is, our public school system and our academies, specifically the key word, our academies. So I'm grateful that council was gracious enough to pass where we can have a street naming, which starts October 18th, this Saturday at 9 o'clock. And then the mayor will be presenting Timberland with the key to the city. So I'm so grateful for that because it has inspired our creatives. It's also inspired our Virginia Beach public library system. He's got several books that he's written. And so kids are reading and kids are responding. So it's not just all about music, it's about really connectivity. And so I'm grateful for council's vote. And I look forward, if you can be there, I'm asking the public to be there at 9 a.m. And then we'll have celebrations at Salem High School, which is not just my high school, it's your high school.
That's a speech.
Bravo.
And it's Saturday.
Michael, thank you, Mayor. Well, as a segue, I'm sorry I can't be there, Councilman Green, because we're dedicating the sign for Princess Anne Plaza. There's 2 signs that were created to destroy a sign that had been destroyed by a drunk driver, apparently a drunk driver. And then with the funds, the Civic League and the city worked together to identify a new sign placement, which further helps to create a sense of community, neighborhood identifying place. And guess what? We're dedicating them at 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. So that's where I'll be. But I want to thank the council and I want to thank the staff. And I certainly want to thank the Princess Anne Plaza Civic League and that community for advocating on behalf of themselves to ensure that we continue to invest in neighborhoods like they expect us to. And this council answered the call when I raised their request. And like a year and a half later, we're dedicating a sign. And I think that's very exciting. It's not as splashy, but it's very meaningful. And I'm really, really excited about that. So thank you. I want to go back to last weekend. There were 2 events that I attended that I just want to call out. The first is the Rainbow Run with Hampton Roads Pride, one of our ongoing collaborative nonprofit partners. And it was a really nice morning at Mount Trashmore, where runners from the Pride community came together and ran, and I walked. I think it's a very special way to step into the future together. And that's what we did that morning with Hampton Roads Pride. And I want to commend them and thank them for their efforts to bring the community together. And then as one of 2 liaisons to Virginia Mocha with Councilmember Remick, I know we both attended the Boardwalk Art Show, the 69th annual Boardwalk Art Show. And I know other members of council were there as well. I'm not going to call you out because I'm not sure I'll get everyone, but if you'd like to talk about it, I welcome you to, because it's a very special Virginia Beach tradition that really celebrates the role that creative expression plays in our lives and connecting us as a community. Virginia Mocha and its predecessor have facilitated this program for, as I said, 69 years this year. And it generates economic activity. It connects us as a community. You see friends, you see neighbors. It's very, very, very special. My aunt used to take me out of school on that Friday and take me down to my Aunt Marianne, and she would take me down to see the Boardwalk Art Show. It just has a special place in my life and memory, but that's my memory. So many people in Virginia Beach have a special memory like that too. So congratulations to Mocha, and thank you.
You know, I think, Michael, you highlight the fact that we got a lot of good stuff going on in Virginia Beach all year round. And, you know, we're definitely becoming an all year round destination and things for do. And I tell you, good stuff. Amelia.
Well, first of all, I want to thank God because, as you know, Saturday initially it said by about 12 or 1.
1:30.
Oh, 1:30. And we were able to go through our entire event on the land up to 4:30, 4:45, no rain. We had people come out. We had the history tent where history lives, and we invited this year Portsmouth as well as Chesapeake, so they had their displays out. And we honored the 2, Patricia Turner, doctor, who was part of the Norfolk 17, and she was there. We had a good time. We had elected officials come out, and we had a strong support. I had Patrick Tuhaney on the phone. We had Noah reaching all the way out there to just double check we're going to be okay. Parks and Rec, Mark Kirschman's on the phone. And people are calling, is this going to happen? We says, yes, you're going to cancel? No, we're going to still go through as far as we can. And it happened. And people who came out enjoyed themselves. We had Jen Heckins come out, we had Delegate Jackie Glass. We had over here one of our board members, Worth Remick, and many others from different cities came out, and we had a good time. And at the end, they did that crazy old boots on the ground dance. We had the fans, but they're all VACC fans. So we really had a good time, and I thank you for having such a supportive group like our staff who were on the phones with me and reassured me, and we had a good time. So thank you. Many things are going on throughout the city, and enough people are showing up, to support the groups.
Great. Anybody else? Stacy?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Vice Mayor Wilson and I attended the school modernization meeting today, a joint session with representatives from the school board superintendent, the city manager was there. And the discussion was basically centered around how to move forward on Princess Anne High School, given where we are with their CIP and the funding and their ability to do additional funding if needed. And I guess the last meeting we had, they had tabled it, and it looked like it was going to be pushed out. It wasn't even going to be discussed until, or wasn't on the board till 2040. So in working with the school board, great collaboration with the city manager and the school board superintendent. They're going to make the recommendation tonight to the school board to send out an RFQ to identify potential builders that they can partner with, to determine, to be able to come up with an RFP to determine what they can get with the resources they have. And hopefully that's going to greatly expedite this entire process, and we can finally get Princess Anne High School on track and moving forward. So it was an amazing degree of collaboration between the city council, city government, and the school board. So everyone's to be commended on that.
No, that's definitely good news. Okay, Rosemary, anything?
It was just a great meeting, one of the better meetings I've ever had, where we've had the school board representation, and it's really nice because we're coming together collaboratively, not the school board and the city council, but it's together and moving forward what's best for everyone. And they've got some real creative ideas too of moving forward. It's not just with Prince Anne High School, but some of they're recognizing that they have declining enrollment, and they don't want us to be doing like some localities say and like go close 10 schools. They don't want us to say that. So they're looking at things themselves to figure out where they can be the most efficient and keeping taxpayer dollars in mind. And so they'll be looking at some different things as well. But it was just a really great meeting. I think they want to have something in their CIP for at least some dollar amounts and expectations. But it's like everything else, it's going to take time. But I think this is a great first step.
Okay, great. And a couple of things I did over the weekend, they had a great pickleball tournament. It was really kind of cool, and we got TV coverage and everything, and hopefully they might have been able to get the finals in on Sunday, but what a crowd, and doing very well. And I didn't go to your event. I had the pleasure of welcoming Pastor Dunmore, coming in. He had installation at Ebenezer Church and everything with Pastor Gatland. And I tell you what, we're so grateful to have a faith-based community here in Virginia Beach. So, okay, anybody else at this point? Okay, here we go. The chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions of the open meetings allowed by section 2.2, 3711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes: personnel matters, discussions, considerations, interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of public officers, appointees, or employees pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A1, and council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings? Councilmember Hensley Left? Councilmember Hutchinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Remick?
Aye.
Councilmember Ross Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Shulman? Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
10 to 0.
Okay, we are recessed into. This meeting back to order. Do we have a motion to approve the closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Hutchinson?
Go.
Councilmember Left? Sorry, Councilmember Jackson Green?
Faster than Jennifer Ross. Yes, here? Yes.
Councilmember Remick?
Remick?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Ross Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Shulman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilson? Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
9 to 0.
Thank you all very much. Good session this afternoon.
Back.